I used to work night shifts at this large manufacturing facility. Night shift was a very small crew. 5 security, 5 of is running admin and packing. As admin staff, I sat with security as they switched between patrolling and monitoring the cameras. It was usually pretty silent and boring. Now I'm not sure how the building got its haunted story. No one besides us ever wanted to work night because of the rumors. None of us ever had any experiences. No one died there. No crazy accidents happened. It wasn't destroyed and rebuilt. It was peaceful and uneventful. But stories always spread, as they tend to do with big, dark, creepy spaces. And it was creepy. It's surrounded by woods, circled with fencing. Mostly empty at night, which made it feel incredibly imposing and empty. Creepy, motion-activated lights inside and out. Sounds carried and echoed. But still, none of us ever had any experiences there. Until this. It was around Halloween. Maybe a week or two before it. I was halfway into my shift, making it my lunch hour. It was chilly, and I went to my car to grab my bigger jacket and have a smoke break. I was right outside the back door, which the fencing runs closest to. It's maybe 10 yards off the back door. The only light is motion activated, and I had to keep making grand arm movements to keep it on. It's all grass and shadows up to the fence, and the light doesn't really hit that far. I was watching videos on my phone and the light cut out. I sat in the dark a bit, sipping my coffee and finishing my cigarette. As I was finishing, I reached up and waved about to activate the light to find the ashtray. But as the light flickered on, I heard a noise at the fence across from me. We do get some animals out there, and they could get startled. It was all explained in my head instantly. But as I stood up, I heard the fence keep slightly jingling. When I looked up, I didn't see much. The light didn't really illuminate much outside its circle on the ground. IDKY, but my first thought was to say, hello? When I did, the sound stopped for a moment. I squinted into the darkness, trying to adjust. The light went out. There in the darkness, the moon had a little more effect, lighting up the area. The fence started lightly jingling again. Really lightly. As my eyes adjusted better, I saw a movement. It looked like a person opposite me at the fence fidgeting with the links. I thought this must be a kid trying to spook us. Maybe they were going to break in and ghost hunt. Some high school kids have before, without knowing the building never closed. And we were usually pretty cool with them poking around as long as they didn't touch anything and made it fast so they could run, tell their friends they lived through it. But that wasn't really common. And this was one person, alone. It felt off. I radioed in with my walkie to desk security. Hey, we have a visitor out by north door behind the fence. I've seen the monitors of the camera feed, and I know this area is totally covered. They'd be able to see the fence clearly. My walkie beeped back and the voice said, "We aren't reading any movement at the fence. Is it in the tree line?" Negative. They're fiddling with the fence right in front of me. This all happened in the span of seconds. My cigarette butt was still in my hands, and I just barely swallowed my last sip of coffee. They didn't even have the chance to reply to me when from the fence I heard this massively louder thrash of the lynx, and all I saw was the figure full-on sprinting at me. I made a terribly embarrassing choking noise and crushed my coffee cup against the knob, trying to rush myself in. The fence is so close it's not going to take more than a few bounds to reach me. I pushed myself in so hard and held the knob in place, trying to figure the deadbolt into place. The knob was flicking down hard against my hold. I could hear and feel something moving against the opposite side of the door. I radioed back, "Get down here now," but I already heard steps coming my way. The knob stopped moving by the time they got there. It was all over with. Back at the office, the security staff tried to play off like I was having a laugh about it. This was a great Halloween joke I played. I didn't understand why they weren't taking it seriously until I saw the playback. It was just me outside. There was nothing there. My brain couldn't explain what I experienced outside while watching the video. I immediately thought this was a big goof on me. Maybe they fiddled with the footage and had someone scare me. But they genuinely thought I was the one goofing with them. We were doing that whole back and forth, okay, whose idea was this? Who is messing with who? Until the second time watching the playthrough. We noticed the way the door handle kept moving even when I removed my hand from it. Both the inside camera and the outside caught it. I noticed right before I panicked and turned to run inside. The fence made a slight jolt as if it was pushed. There were no holes in the fence or any kind of cuts made where someone could squeeze through. There were no creepy shadows or unexplained wisps of smoke or lights or movement besides those. Just me in the night jumping out of my skin and running inside. I kept trying to think back to when I jumped, when that figure burst at me full speed, if the light activated for their movement or mine. I couldn't decide. I couldn't remember exactly why it was so fast. But nobody there wanted to admit anything happened to me. It was tricks of the moonlight, an overactive imagination, and too much coffee. Branches against the chain links. No one's ever experienced anything weird here, and it wouldn't just start up here now for no reason. I didn't make a fuss. I didn't want to argue it. They already thought I was being weird about it. Maybe I was? I went about finishing my shift, but no one used the back door again that night, and it remained locked. The longest employed security was finishing up the shift at the desk with me in the office. It was before dawn. The morning shift was trickling into the parking lot. He watched the cameras in silence while I typed away. A few minutes before clocking out, he cleared his throat and told me, "I never really liked the North End. It feels like someone's eyes are always on me." It's honestly the most he's ever said to me in the year plus I worked there. The most I've ever heard him say. I felt like that statement held even more weight for that alone. I didn't quit though. I stayed on another 7 months until the company was bought out and they stopped overnight shifts to pile more work on day shifts for less money with fewer employees. There was never another incident. I never actually went out there again though. I stopped smoking, took my breaks out in the lobby, or wasted time chatting with coworkers. But I made excuses not to sit outside, to be honest. I feel like a few of us did. I have never before or since had any moments where I felt like my imagination got the better of me, and I truly believe that wasn't the case here. I keep thinking back at the door handle, jerking down when I step back on the walkie. That had to be proof I wasn't imagining the whole thing. No one ever brought it up again, and wherever anyone asked about working in the old crappy factory, everyone would say, "Oh, we never saw anything up there. It's just a boring building at night." I would just smile and keep my side of the story to myself. But I wondered if anyone else was holding stories to themselves. Maybe they'd slip out after a few beers and fueled a few more questions about the haunted factory. I work in a nursing home and my schedule consists of days, evenings, and nights. It's rough transitioning between days and nights, but everyone that works here has the same shifts, so we just get through them together. The building has about 100 residents with 3 floors. The building is shaped like an L with a north and south wing, and the nursing station's in the middle. The 3rd floor currently only has a few residents living there due to construction, with one of the wings completely shut down because they're ripping out the walls. Due to only a few residents being on that floor, only 1 nurse is required to be on duty on that floor. I've worked the night shift alone on that floor many times and never really experienced anything scary or weird. Sure, it's creepy and dark at night, but that was it. I've never believed in the paranormal at all. I had the mindset that I had to see it to believe it. I'm a huge fan of true crime and scary movies and stories and true crime and paranormal documentaries, however. A few of my coworkers over the years had talked about how the 3rd floor is haunted. They'd hear knocks at night and see weird things. I was always intrigued to hear about it, but we would always just laugh it off. But that night a few weeks ago has really started to change my mind. I was sitting in the nursing station, watching movies and playing on my phone. I had just done my rounds and had answered a call bell. I had felt off that night and constantly had that feeling of being watched. I also kept on thinking that I was seeing things out of the corner of my eye. The next part is hard to explain, but I'll try as best I can. As I was sitting there, all of a sudden a shadow dropped from the ceiling and hovered over me. But by the time I realized what I was seeing, it was gone. My heart jumped and I jumped out of my chair. There was no way it would be a shadow from anything, or a car passing by, as the only window looked out into the forest, with nothing but trees for miles. After a few moments, I calmed down and left the nursing station to go check on my residents. Nothing seemed amiss, and none of them were awake except for the little old lady at the end of the hall, watching her TV shows. As I walked back to the nursing station, I swore I saw feet or a shadow moving under the crack of the door leading to the wing that was closed for construction. I opened the door just to make sure it wasn't a wandering resident from another floor, which happens quite often. But there was no one there. I walked back to the nursing station freaked out, still feeling like someone or something was watching me. I settled back into my chair and tried to watch TikTok videos to get my mind off of it. I was sitting with my back to the window, facing the door. After about an hour of watching videos, I glanced at the clock. It was 3:03. I remember being slightly annoyed as my coworker had promised to come up at 2:50 so I could have my break and go out to my car to have a smoke. Unhealthy, I know. I'm trying to quit, but that night I needed one. All of a sudden, I hear 3 knocks on the window behind me. I jumped up, looked out the window, and there I was, nothing there. Flight mode took over and I just darted down the hall, running into my coworker, who was just coming off the elevator. Now bear in mind I'm on the 3rd floor, which is pretty high up. There was no stairway, tree, or ladder outside that window, so it was impossible for a person to be outside knocking on the window. I immediately asked my coworker if she knocked or heard any knocking, and she said no. She could see how shaken up I was and offered to switch floors for the remainder of the shift. I was very thankful, as being on the 2nd floor means you're with another nurse, so I wouldn't be alone. I went out to my car and had a few smokes and just tried to calm down. I talked to the nurse on the 2nd floor and she didn't seem too surprised. She's heard knocking up there and seen and heard things she can't explain. A lot of people have died up there, and after that night, I honestly don't know what to believe anymore. I haven't ever felt fear like I did that night, and I've since worked a few night shifts up there and didn't experience anything like that again. Could it be that I was just tired? I don't know, but I won't ever forget how I felt that night. I used to work at a pub that was 2 miles from my house. My shift ended at about 11 one night. I stayed there for a couple of drinks, then started walking home. Now, this had been an exceptional night for me tip-wise, and I had close to $400 in cash on me at the time. Between the pub and my house was exactly 1 street light about a quarter mile from the pub. The rest of the walk was in complete darkness. This was a dark night too. It was close to the new moon and cloudy to boot, so it was almost pitch black. Now I live out in the boonies, so there isn't even much light pollution to help out. Not long after I leave the pub, a car slowly drives by me. About a quarter mile down the road, the car slows to a stop and it just sits there. I stop walking and watch the car. It sits for a few minutes, then slowly drives away. A couple of minutes later, the same car comes slowly driving back by me in the opposite lane. It gets by me, drives a bit down the road, and slows to a stop again. Then it does a U-turn and starts creeping back down the road toward me with the lights off. At this point, I'm terrified. I don't have a cell phone at the time. There's no one around to see what's going on. The car is between me and the pub, so I can't get back to the safety there. My house is still about 1.5 miles away. No way I can quickly escape there. I quickly run off the road into the woods and duck down behind a bush. I watch for the car, but it's too dark to see it with the lights off and bushes, trees, and undergrowth between me and the road. I sit there for about 10 minutes, but don't see or hear anything. I'm about to make my way back to the road when I hear car doors closing. Now I'm really panicking. It feels like my chest is about to explode. The hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. I keep imagining someone sneaking up behind me. I stay hidden and hope to God, whoever it is doesn't find me. I don't know how long I stay there, but I eventually hear car doors again, then cars passing by. I give it a couple of minutes, then ease back to the road. When I see it's clear, I haul ass back to the pub and let my boss know what happened. He said then and there that I'm never to walk home at night again. Either he, his brother, or his mom will give me a lift home. When the other servers and the kitchen staff hear what happened, they all say the same thing. Never been that terrified before.